The Raiders have caused some conflict in our show. We just do not see this team the same, Perloff, you and I, because the Raiders are obviously in a bit of trouble here. They're 0-3 after what was a blockbuster offseason where they trade for Davante Adams, where they sign Chandler Jones, where they have a new head coach and Josh McDaniels. All these things that you thought were going to make them a playoff team in the AFC. Even if it's a stacked AFC West, which they compete in, obviously, this had all the makings of a playoff team. Right. And now they're 0-3, and the playoffs feel like such a long shot.
Yeah, I think if you didn't make them a playoff team, it was only because they were in the AFC West.
Right.
It was all agreed. If they were in any other division, this is a playoff team because they have stars everywhere.
And so where you and I agree on that, but where we disagree is about where the Raiders kind of go from here. And to me, if I was the general manager of the Raiders, I'm looking at quarterbacks now. And that doesn't mean that Derek Carr's career is done in Las Vegas or that he can't do anything to redeem himself. But it's been 9 years of Derek Carr, right? We're 9 years in with not one playoff win. And even if that's not all of his fault, are you going to keep investing and keep investing and keep handing money, and not insignificant money? Like the contracts might not be super long, like a Mahomes contract, but they're high in value. He's getting paid a ton. He's one of the top 5 by average annual. He's top 5 quarterback being paid in this league today. And so when you are paid like that, but your production isn't matching it, I would be crazy as a general manager if I'm not thinking about what is the future beyond Derek Carr.
Well, so much depends on what happens this year. Say they go 7-10 and they end up with like the 18th pick. That's not going to be high enough to get a surefire thing at quarterback. Maybe if they're say they go 3-14 and they're 1, 2, or 3, of course, you got to look quarterback. But if they're middle of the road and they can't get the top guy, this is not a team that is ready to rebuild. You can't just scrap everything at quarterback. You have Davante Adams, who's going to turn 30.
Yep.
You have a star and Max Crosby on the defensive line. You have all these guys, all these older guys.
This is a veteran team.
This is a veteran team. So I don't know if you can start over with a rookie with this team.
Okay, well, you could. It's not ideal, but ask yourself, can you keep going down this road and keep giving this big money to Derek Carr if you don't think that he's the solution for you? And I'm not saying that he's the only person to blame for the 0-3 start, but what I'm saying is I can't just continue to be loyal to somebody who hasn't elevated the franchise to the point where I need to be elevated or to where my expectations are. And another part, I can't just say because we traded for your friend that I can't draft a quarterback. I can't run my organization like that. Trade for Davante Adams, you paid Davante Adams. That in and of itself should make him happy to be a Raider. If you decide to move on from his friend, that's just business, man. That's the NFL. Like, I would not expect Davante Adams to all of a sudden say, like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, at some point, the organization has to put itself over any individual player.
Wow. Here's the thing. If you have Davante Adams next year and no Derek Carr, and you have a rookie quarterback with that offensive line, you just got to trade Davante Adams. What are you doing? That's a total rebuild to me, because you need to draft the first offensive lineman you get a hold of. Even though they were a little better last week against Tennessee, isn't that the number one overwhelming problem for this team? And I know you liked them coming in the season, but
I did.
You said, listen, if that offensive line can do something, because they famously drafted Alex Leatherwood in the first round.
Yep, and it was a bust.
It was a bust. Yep. So I don't know. I'm not sure how this formula is going to work out. They might be stuck with Derek Carr.
Okay, but think about other teams who have made this miscalculation in recent history.
Okay,
the Atlanta Falcons, who didn't move on from Matt Ryan probably early enough, right? Where they couldn't protect him, and it was the long goodbye, and now you're seeing him just getting beat up in Indianapolis. The Giants did this with Eli Manning. They tried to draft offensive lineman after offensive lineman. It was miss after miss after miss. They ended up having him too long before they went to another quarterback. I'm not saying it's easy to move away from someone who's basically been at the helm for a decade, but the way that the NFL works now, because the salaries are so big for the quarterbacks, that if you don't have a guy who's elite, you're paying a middle of the pack Derek Carr. We don't know what to do with Derek Carr. One day he looks like a top 5 quarterback. The next day he looks like Fresno State. I don't know. But all I know is this: you cannot pay big money unless it's the guy. And to this point, has Derek Carr definitively answered that question?
No,
Guys,
he hasn't. But Matt Ryan and Eli Manning were ancient by this compared to Derek Carr is 31. He's got plenty of time. I know it's amazing. Has he been there 9 years?
9 years.
Okay, that's weird. But the one time he was
we've all been in a coma, and Derek Carr's been there for a decade.
The 1 year he was really, really good. He got hurt right before the playoffs. And last year he made the playoffs.
Yep.
So there is a case to be made for Derek Carr. Do I love making this case? No. But it's so much better than the alternative. What if they have Bryce Young, who's 21, leading this team? They're not going to be good next year. They have no chance of being good.
Listen, I don't know if Josh McDaniels is a good head coach or not, but I do know that last year with a rookie quarterback, the Patriots were a playoff team. You weren't asking Mac Jones to do a ton, and I know that could be an exception, not the rule. It's not often that you have rookies like Mark Sanchez or something that makes an AFC championship game when you're a rookie. However, I think that you have to weigh your lesser of two evils, and you have to think about what's best for the future of my franchise, because you don't just have Davante Adams for a year or two, right? You have him for several years. And again, you've got to ask yourself, like, can we have a veteran squad, and can that make up for a rookie quarterback, or do we continue to pay Derek Carr?
Well, okay. If you're going to get rid of Derek Carr, what's the point of holding on to Davante? Why don't you just get rid of him too?
Because I don't want to do a full rebuild. I also just paid Darren Waller. Like, I just gave out contract extensions to two guys there. So I don't want to like throw the baby out with the bathwater. I just want to say, like, am I paying too much? And the most expensive person on my roster is also the most important person who might not be holding his weight.
And by the way, Mac Jones is not making the playoffs in the AFC West. You do have that.
Probably not.
Which might be a
most recent
reason.
example with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, it might be a good reason that you have to start over because you need to be elite in that division. I understand everything you're saying in theory, but in practical terms for the Las Vegas Raiders, like they just can't rip the Band-Aid and start over. If you're not going to full rebuild, I don't think you can do better than Derek Carr. I think a rookie would be very problematic there because their offensive line stinks. Davante Adams is not getting younger. He's 30. By the time that rookie learns how to play the game, he might be done in wide receiver terms. I think they're stuck right there. And also, you have this beautiful new stadium in Las Vegas. Do you really want to take a risk, or do you want to try and be an 11-win team, a 10-win team? And Derek Carr, okay, he's not been great this season. He's good enough to win you 10 games.
Well, he's good enough to win you 10 games. Is that the point? I mean, is that the point? Like, you're a Raider fan, Raiders, like Stu.
Yes, that's the point.
The point is to win 10 games, or the point to win Super Bowls? The point's to win Super Bowls.
Stu,
I'm going to answer for Stu.
Answer that honestly.
I will gladly take 10-win seasons after about 15 years of misery.
Yeah.
See, but think about it, 15 years of misery, 9 of which have been with Derek Carr. Again, not everything is his fault. He had to overcome Gruden and a bunch of different things. Mike Mayock. I mean, I get it. This has not been exactly the rosiest scenario. But at the same time, it's about your allocation of your money and your resources, and it's about doing the best thing for your franchise. And then it's like diagnosing what's going on with the Raiders right now in the moment. 0-3. They've been close games. You're right about that, Perloff. They've been close games. These aren't blowouts. But these aren't ways that I expect veteran teams to lose. I don't expect a veteran team to blow a 20-point lead.
Yeah, but you kind of expect the Raiders to do that. So you know what I'm talking about.
It's been there before.
They are a mess. They're a bit of a mess. They always have been. And you look at the team from top to bottom, you're like, oh, there's some really good players. But who are these guys around them? Because they're still trying to dig out from what Mike Mayock was doing for the last 4 years.
You know what? It reminds me of, remember your Eagles dream team with Nnamdi Asomugha, and everyone's like, this is the dream team. We kind of like anointed, because this is exciting. It's exciting to look at these weapons. And, I know Renfro was out last week, but like Waller and Renfro and Davante Adams. And like, here's another thing. Can I just ask a question, because I'm not an offensive coordinator in the NFL, but Davante Adams was double teamed when he was in Green Bay, right? I mean, he was the receiver there, number one, far and away. So if they were still able to get open and he was able to get his yards and be the focal point in Green Bay, why can't he get open, or why are they having such trouble with the coverages when you actually have other good receivers who are around him? So anyway, that's a question I have.
ESPN's Dan Orlovsky said that Adams has been open 5 or 6 times a game, that Derek Carr is missing him.
All right, so you want to stand up for Derek Carr now?
I want to give him time. They're going to be favored in probably a string of games coming up. So they could, they're favored this week. They host Denver. Denver's a disaster.
Now, this is an interesting game.
Denver's it's big a disaster. The Raiders at 0-3 feel better than the 2-1 Broncos in some bizarre way.
Somehow, the Denver Broncos coach couldn't figure out how to call a timeout if his life depended on it, yet they're 2-1.
Yeah. Then they have the Chiefs. At the Chiefs, that's hard. But Houston at New Orleans. We don't know what New Orleans is going to look like. And believe it or not, at Jacksonville, you're not going to hear this. I bet you the Raiders end up being favored in that game. If Jacksonville was in the AFC,
I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, the Jacksonville's a touchdown underdog this week.
I don't get that, though. But
Really?
the Eagles have looked like an awesome team.
Yeah, I think the schedule will even things out. I think the Raiders, okay, here's my scenario. The Raiders end up drifting towards 500. What does that mean?
Again, you're going to keep doing this? You're going to pay a quarterback that much money for 500?
Yeah, I mean, what is he going to be by this season? By next year, he'll be the 12th or 13th highest paid quarterback. So, yes, I think if you're the Raiders, you're putting the bar too high. Not every team is going to compete for the Super Bowl. I know I'm being such a defeatist here.
Yeah, I didn't put the bar high. They put the bar high. Well, why are you trading for Devontae Adams? Why are you bringing in Josh McDaniels? Are you doing it just to twiddle your thumbs? They were the ones who made the expectations high. You pay this money for Chandler Jones?
Yeah, I think that...
Who unfortunately has not been holding his weight. Tough for me to say.
I think that you really, at this point, you just want to be competitive in the AFC West. I'm not sure. I mean, nobody picked the Raiders to win the Super Bowl this year. They were the distant fourth in that division in Vegas odds coming in. You just want to be really good and exciting at this point. Is that so lame of me to say that?
I don't know. I would like to hear from the Raider fans.
Yeah.
Is it good enough to just be exciting? And right now, it's exciting losses. And actually, those are excruciating.
There's going to be a slow drift back. This is how the Raider seasons go. They have these crazy losing streaks and they get crazy hot.
But usually you start hot and then they fade.
Yeah, I feel like there's always an interim coach involved somewhere in there too.
I know. Bisaccia is gone.
You're bringing your AFC East logic of Buffalo and New England to the Raiders. And
and the Eagles moved on from a quarterback they were paying a lot of money to draft a quarterback in the second round. We can see the trend here, right? Don't we see what the smarter teams are doing? The ones who are not paying tons and tons of money to quarterbacks that they don't think are elite.
Well, the Eagles...
Or you make that mistake one time, you don't make it again.
Funny enough, drafted Jalen Hurts and said this has nothing to do with Carson Wentz. We're just drafting a backup.
And nobody believed it.
Yeah, but it was a second-round pick. Yeah, of course the Raiders could... Derek Carr was a second-round pick, too. Yes, they can pick a first, second-round pick. I think Derek Carr is starting their week one just because of the whole situation. You can't move on. It's been 3 weeks. At least you have an okay quarterback. That's something, Maggie.
It's negligent if they're not thinking about it because you always have to be thinking about short-term, medium, and long. I think. That's what I would do if I were the GM. Thank you for watching our video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this, just hit the bell.
Yeah, ring the bell.
Just hit the bell.